Chapter 38. Trails of Shadow and Regret. Vare followed Zariel into the Broken Lantern Inn, the door creaking like old bones under the weight of too many secrets. The place was a step up from the Broken Crown, dimly lit by sputtering lanterns that cast greasy light over chipped tables and patrons nursing their miseries in silence. The air stank of sour ale and unwashed travellers, a haze of pipe smoke clinging to the rafters like cobwebs. Zariel led him up a narrow stairwell, his steps silent as a forest ghost, while Vare's limp thudded against the warped wood, each one a reminder of wounds that ran deeper than flesh. At the end of the hall, Zariel rapped a coded knock on a door, and it cracked open to reveal Arla's face, the young girl who had been saved from Ashenvere, eyes hollow from the road's toll. She stepped aside, and there was Liss, the frail 16-year-old, huddled on a sagging bed, her dull blonde hair matted, bruised arms wrapped around her knees, those once bright eyes still clouded by Starshatter's grip. She looked up at Vare, a flicker of relief cutting through the fog, but it twisted something in his gut. The kid had trusted him, just like Dylan. "You're alive," Liss whispered, voice raw as if speaking hurt. Arla crossed her arms, exhaustion lining her face. "We thought the bad men hurt you." Vare grunted, leaning against the wall to ease his ribs. "Just a scratch, nothing to worry about, young one. We're going to be moving. Now. Zariel's kin in the Bloodwild will stash you two safe. Wood elves got hidden groves even Aelth's spies can't sniff out." Zariel nodded, his luminous eyes steady. "My people owe me favors. You'll be guarded, fed, away from this storm." Liss stood shakily, rags clinging to her trembling frame, but there was steel in her gaze. "What about Dylan?" "He's out there alone." Vare's jaw tightened, the prophecy Zariel had spun still churning in his mind like bad meat. "Kid's toughening up. We'll find him after we drop you." Lies tasted like ash, but they got the girls moving, grabbing what scraps they had, slipping out the back into the night. The group melted into Aelth's fringes, the city's spires fading behind them like jagged teeth in the mist. They skirted the slums where addicts twitched in gutters high on diluted Starshatter, peddled by the king's own agents, and pushed into the wilds where Vailoria's grip loosened. The road turned to mud-choked paths flanked by crimson foliage that pulsed faintly in the dark, the Bloodwild's edge whispering threats. Vare's limp slowed them, but the gold in his purse bought a rickety cart from a shady trader pulled by a sway-backed mule that snorted at every rustle. As they rattled onward, the jungle closed in, trees oozing green glowing sap, vines dripping acid that hissed on the ground, distant shrieks piercing the humid air. Vare's thoughts gnawed at him, the star vessel prophecy, Dylan as some reborn apprentice bound to God's souls. The kid had looked up to him, wide-eyed and desperate, but he'd clawed his way to bravery, facing wolves, enduring training that would have broken harder men. And Vare had sold him out. Guilt festered, a familiar rot, but survival was survival. Hours blurred into the crimson dawn when Zariel veered them off the path into a thicket where ancient trees twisted like guardians. He whistled a melody that echoed unnaturally, and wood elves materialized from the shadows, lithe figures in moss-green cloaks, bows knocked, but lowered at Zariel's word. Their leader, an elder with silver hair braided with vines, nodded grimly. "They'll be safe here," she said, her voice like wind through leaves. Arla and Liss vanished into the grove's embrace, Liss casting one last haunted look back. Vare and Zariel pressed on alone, the Bloodwild swallowing them, the site where they'd lost Dylan, a bloody memory ahead. Jans Rinso knelt in the crimson undergrowth of the Bloodwild, his piercing void scanning the ground like a hawk on the hunt. The jungle reeked of rot and metallic tang, vines coiling like nooses overhead, but to Jans it was a canvas of signs. Broken twigs whispering of passage, faint boot prints in the spongy soil, etched with a limping gait that screamed desperation. He'd unleashed his shadow dragons at dawn, 30 lean killers, faces scarred by 100 contracts, clad in dark leathers that blended with the shadows. He'd split them into 3 packs, 10 to sweep the riverbanks where the boy had vanished in the bitter root chaos, 10 to fan north toward the storm spire's jagged peaks, and 10 with him, threading the heart of the wilds where instinct pulled strongest. "Find the trail," he'd commanded, voice smooth as a drawn blade. "But bring him breathing if you can. The boy with the scars is the prize." His assassins had melted into the foliage like ghosts, poison daggers glinting, their unerring aim honed in the guild's blood-soaked halls. Jans moved with lethal grace, his expert eyes dissecting the chaos. A snapped fern here, its break fresh and deliberate, not the random tear of a beast, a smudge of boot heel in the red-veined dirt, angled northward, the weight distribution light, a lean frame, scared and wary, not the heavy stomp of a mercenary. He tasted the air, the faint acrid bite of sap burns on skin lingering like a ghost, and crouched to brush fingers over a faint glow, star-like residue, ethereal and wrong, matching the whispers of the boy's marks. Clever, but not clever enough, he thought, cynicism curling his lip. The jungle was a meat grinder, but Jans had danced its edges before, reading its pulses like a lover's lies. His mind wandered to a hunt long past, a tricky quarry in the Iron Fang Range, a rogue dwarf lord who'd fled with Krindar's war plans, holing up in cursed mines haunted by marrow vipers. Jans had tracked him for weeks, sifting ore dust for boot scuffs, listening to echoes for labored breaths, ignoring false trails laced with illusions. It ended in success, the dwarf cornered in a chasm, his throat slit clean, plans reclaimed amid the viper's hisses. Persistence and patience, he reminded himself, rising smoothly. This boy was no different, a puzzle of scars and fate, but Jans's blade would unravel him. The trail warmed, leading deeper, and he signaled his dragons forward, the star shrine's distant thrum echoing his resolve.